and welcome to this video. I'm excited for this one. Here in the US, it is college basketball tournament season right now. I thought, you know what? I'm not that much into basketball, but I am into books. So I'm gonna create a bracket of my favorite books and we're gonna see which book ends up on top. The 16 books I have in this bracket are The Night Circus, The Starless Sea, Ella Enchanted, A Study in Drowning, Tress of the Emerald Sea, The Goose Girl, Percy Jackson, Legend Born, Pride and Prejudice, Northanger Abbey, The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings series, Mexican Gothic, Divine Rivals, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, the Sisters Grimm series, and the American Girl books. These are a mix of favorites from recent years and also my childhood, and I'm excited to see where this goes because I'm gonna go ahead and shuffle these and we're gonna get into it. Okay, all right. So our first matchup is the Sisters Grimm versus Northanger Abbey. Now, the Sisters Grimm is the book series that got me into reading, and so it's on here for just like nostalgic purposes. It's the series that really got me to read on my own, but I'm gonna have to go with Northanger Abbey. It's a classic. It's by Jane Austen, who's just a favorite of mine, and I love that this book is about a girl who loves to read. Like, I'm a girl who likes to read, and so yeah, it has to go to Northanger Abbey. All my love to Sisters Grimm, but I've grown up, you know? Okay, next we have Pride and Prejudice and The Night Circus. These are so different. These are so different, and I love both of them so much. Like, Pride and Prejudice is a classic, and I feel like it's illegal not to choose Pride and Prejudice, but I feel like The Night Circus just speaks to my soul more. Like, it is just more me. It's got a little bit of magic in it. I'm gonna go with The Night Circus. Okay, next, The Goose Girl versus Legend Born. I'm gonna go with The Goose Girl. This is one that I have read and reread since I was a teenager. The main character, her name is Ani, and I just really love her story and feel like I relate to her in a lot of ways. She's a very reserved character, kind of on the more quiet side, but because she's royalty and she's expected to become the next queen, there are these expectations that people have for her. And because she's not as outspoken as others, she feels like she's disappointing her family. But then she goes on this whole adventure and this whole journey. She becomes more confident and finds her own power. And as a teenager, I loved reading this book because I needed a character I could relate to in that way. We're going with The Goose Girl, but I loved Legend Born. I love Legend Born so much. Reading it in the last couple of years and discovering it the last couple of years, it gave me the same feeling that I got when I first read Percy Jackson as a kid. And that is another book that is on this list that we'll get to in a minute that like really solidified my love of reading for me. So I love Legend Born, but this is going to The Goose Girl. Okay, Tress of the Emerald Sea and Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. Okay, so this is a little bit of an unfair pairing. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, I just finished last week and I absolutely love it. And it may be on this list because of recency bias, but I love it. I love the historical aspect to it. I love that there are footnotes in this book and it feels kind of academic, but it's like this academic book about magic, which isn't real, but I love it. And I love that it's like taking this fantasy so seriously. I love it a lot. And I love that it's set in the Regency era, which is the same period of time that Bridgerton and like Jane Austen's books and a lot of other stories that I like are set in. And so it's just like the perfect combination of stuff to me. However, as I mentioned, I did just barely finish reading that a week ago, and I've had a lot longer to sit with and love Tress of the Emerald Sea, so I'm gonna go with Tress of the Emerald Sea. For a similar reason that I liked The Goose Girl, Tress of the Emerald Sea is also about a girl that, I don't know how to quite say it, like becoming confident in who she is. And I like that. I like that story. I like that it feels like a fairy tale. I like the quirkiness of the narration. I love Tress of the Emerald Sea. And when I read it a couple of years ago, I felt like I was finding a part of myself again. I was reconnecting with my love of reading after several years of just like reading for school and nothing else. So it was the first time that I'd read a book that I was like, no, this is me. I read because I enjoy it and I love it for that, and I relate to the main character, and I love it when I can relate to a character in a book. All right, next, Percy Jackson and Divine Rivals. Wow, okay. That's an interesting matchup. I love both. I don't even know where to start with this one. Like, I don't even have a gut reaction with this one because they're just so different. Percy Jackson, like I said before, is a childhood favorite. It's a book that I think of when I just think of getting lost in a book when I was a kid. I remember specifically with Percy Jackson when I was reading the series for the first time, I pretended I was sick so I didn't have to go to church one Sunday so I could stay home and read Percy Jackson. That's how much I loved it. I love getting lost in a book like that. And so when I think of books that I got lost in as a kid, this is one of the ones that immediately comes to mind, and I love it so much. I've also fallen in love with the TV show, the TV series that has been coming out the last couple of years, and that's kind of reignited my love for Percy Jackson. I love the representation in Percy Jackson and like all of Rick Riordan's books. I love that he makes that a big priority with everything he writes, is to represent different groups of people. I love that. So Percy Jackson is really great. Divine Rivals, on the other hand, a fantasy romance with like historical World War I, World War II vibes. That has a similar premise to You've Got Mail. Very different from Percy Jackson, but I loved it. I loved this book for the way it was written. Just the language that is used in this book is there's a lot of like flowery descriptions and stuff of things, and I love that. It just feels magical. It's about two writers who are rivals, but they fall in love, and because they're writers, the things they write to each other, the letters they write to each other are just like gorgeous poetry. I read this a couple of years ago and absolutely fell in love. I still, even after rambling about these two for the last 5 minutes, I still have no idea. I don't know what to do. Do I just do eeny, meeny, miny, mo? Jeez. Okay. I'm gonna go with Percy Jackson. We're just gonna go with it. Okay, next we have the Hobbit / Lord of the Rings series. I couldn't choose, so I just kind of grouped them together. Classic in the fantasy genre. Cozy, but like also very high stakes at the same time. I think what makes it feel cozy is just like you get so immersed in the world and you get to see these big epic battles and these action-packed scenes, but then you also have the slow scenes in between and that are very slow. I remember specifically in Fellowship, there's a scene where they're sitting around a campfire and Legolas starts singing. And that feels so cozy, and yet this is such an epic journey, an epic story, and you just get so immersed in it, and it's amazing. And it's a classic in the fantasy genre for a reason, and I love the fantasy genre, if you can tell by all of the fantasy books I've already mentioned here. And then book that's competing against Lord of the Rings is A Study in Drowning. This was my favorite book that I read last year. This is another book about a girl who loves books, and I related to that. And like, not only does she love books, there's this particular book that she escapes into when she feels like she's drowning. There are things in her life that are triggering to her, that trigger really traumatic events and memories for her. And when she starts to feel that way, when she starts to feel like she's drowning in those experiences and those memories, she escapes to her favorite book. And I just love that in this book and in this world, the magic is words. The magic is these stories. The story that she escapes to is like considered magic in this world. And I love that because I myself obviously love books and I think that they're magical, whether they're fantasies or not. I think they're magical and they hold a power for me. And so I really liked that. And I read that and it just clicked. So on a personal level, I would say Study in Drowning, but on a like more objective level, I feel like I have to say Lord of the Rings. But this is my video. This is my channel. These are my favorite books. This is my bracket. So we're gonna go with A Study in Drowning, but I love both. Okay, The Starless Sea versus Ella Enchanted. I love Ella Enchanted. It is the childhood favorite book that I reread the most. I honestly can't count how many times I've reread Ella Enchanted. I love it so much. But I'm gonna have to go with The Starless Sea. The Starless Sea is just such a vibe, and I feel like it's something that throughout the rest of my life I'm going to be rereading. Maybe not quite as much as I reread Ella Enchanted as a teenager, but I will be rereading The Starless Sea because there's just so much to it and so many different layers that I feel like every time you read it, you're gonna catch on to something different because it's a labyrinth. It's a story about a young man who gets lost in this like labyrinth made of stories. Behind every door is a different story that like you can literally and physically get lost in. It's immersive. We're going with that. Okay, next, Mexican Gothic or American Girl? This is just hilarious to me. It's gonna go to Mexican Gothic, but I have the American Girl books on here because those are the first books I remember reading. Like as a 3 or 4 year old, my mom would read these books to me. When I learned to read myself, I continued to read these books, and I read every single one of the American Girl historical girl books up until I was like 13 or 14. So like I loved these books a lot. But Mexican Gothic, man. If you don't know, this is a horror book. So very different vibes from sweet little historical fiction books about young girls finding their strength. Mexican Gothic is about a young woman whose cousin gets married into this family that has some creepy stuff going on. We'll just say that. And so this young woman goes to try and support her cousin, try to be there for her, and then get swept up in all this creepy stuff along with her cousin. It is just creepy. I have felt it in my bones, and it was like gross and creepy, and I was like, oh, I don't like this, but I do. I can't stop reading because it's just so, ugh. So anyway, there's that. Northanger Abbey versus the Night Circus. I love them both, but we're gonna go Night Circus. I gotta go for the magic, you know? I'm a fantasy lover. I love me my fantasies. We're gonna go Night Circus, and sorry to Jane Austen, both of your books are out, but I love you anyway. Okay, The Goose Girl versus Tress of the Emerald Sea. Oh my gosh. When I first read Tress of the Emerald Sea a couple of years ago, I thought, this is like The Goose Girl. This is my grown-up version of The Goose Girl. And now they're going head to head. Which one do I like more? Okay, this is hard. Because I feel like The Goose Girl is a little bit more serious, whereas like Tress of the Emerald Sea is a little bit more quirky in vibe. But I like them for similar reasons. I like these books for a similar reason. So it's like, do I like the more serious version, or do I like the a little bit more quirky, fun version? I'm gonna go quirky and fun. I like Tress of the Emerald Sea. Okay, Percy Jackson versus A Study in Drowning. Well, now I'm second guessing The Goose Girl. Okay, I changed my mind. It's The Goose Girl. Shoot. I thought this would be easier, but it's not. Okay, Percy Jackson and A Study in Drowning. We're gonna go Study in Drowning. The Starless Sea versus Mexican Gothic. Ooh, this is a good matchup. This is a really good matchup. Because both of these, I just like felt. I felt the magic and the whimsy of the Starless Sea, but when I read Mexican Gothic, like I just said, I felt the horror, I felt the creepiness, I felt the disgust, like I felt it. Two books that I just deeply felt in different ways. Okay, we're gonna eeny, meeny, miny, moe this. Okay, meeny, miny, moe, catch a tiger by the toe. If he hollers, let him go. And you are it. Okay, eeny, meeny, miny, moe says Starless Sea. Right, down to the final four. The Night Circus versus The Goose Girl. No, that's not fair. That's not fair. I'm gonna go with The Goose Girl. A Study in Drowning versus The Starless Sea. Both of these are about people who like books, who like stories. Like, I like stories and I like books. The power, the magic is in the stories. And I like that because I feel that, I relate to that, I agree with that. But which one do I like more? I'm gonna, Do I do eeny, meeny, miny, moe again? No, I have to decide this time. And I'm gonna go A Study in Drowning. Okay, The Goose Girl versus A Study in Drowning. This is it. This is the final one. Who's gonna take it? Who's gonna be the champion? This is, because it's like my oldest favorite. Okay, maybe not oldest. Like I said, American Girl is literally the first book I can ever remember having, But my oldest favorite that still continues to be a favorite. 2 or 3 years ago I reread it. Still holds up. And A Study in Drowning is like my most recent. Okay, not most recent, but very recent. My favorite read of 2025, which is only a couple months ago. So I'm like, this is hard. What's gonna win? Recency bias or nostalgia? I'm gonna go A Study in Drowning. We're doing it. It's done. A Study in Drowning won. Yay. Look at that. Little trophy. Some confetti. That's fun. All right. Well, there you go. That's my favorite book of all time, according to that randomly generated bracket. Do I think that's actually my favorite book of all time, though? I don't know. We could be here for another hour or more. Actually, I'm not going to think about that. Thank you for watching. If you watched this whole thing, let me know in the comments below what your top 4 favorite books are. What books make it to your final 4? Let me know in a comment down below. I'm curious to hear what kind of books you like. And With that said, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening to me ramble about books. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.